Hello there, and welcome to myfinanceteacher.org. Based on multiple requests, today, as part of looking at precious metals, we are going to look at silver. As I often mention, silver does follow gold, but in this case, let's have a look at history since the pandemic, that's in March 2020. Similar to gold, we do see intermediate cycles in silver lasting for an average of around half a year. Looking at the 14-day RSI, the intermediate cycle lows are usually signaled either by a positive divergence in RSI, that's when a higher low in RSI suggests a likely turnaround into an upward momentum, or these intermediate cycle lows are signaled by a relatively low RSI dipping into the oversold area or close to it. We see another positive divergence around the second half of 2021. The next intermediate cycle low, although it's rather questionable here, which of these low in either December 2021 or early 2022 to count as a correct intermediate cycle low. In either case, we see a correction in RSI down to close to oversold levels, followed by another multiple positive divergence lows as part of that extended decline down in precious metals that was quite painful in gold, where that intermediate cycle in gold, as far as I remember, lasted for around 270 days or so. That was a very unusually long intermediate cycle. And the previous confirmed intermediate cycle low in silver came with this RSI dipping deep into oversold area, a bit of short-term positive divergence there as well. And more recently, at the very beginning of October, we see RSI dipping far into oversold area again. And as I mentioned in a recent video about gold, that suggests a very likely intermediate cycle low, which is generally bullish for the next 2 to 3 to 4 months, as both gold and silver go through the advancing phase of this new intermediate cycle. Looking at silver optics, there are intermediate cycle lows which bring optimism down close to this green line or below. For example, during this pandemic low, the optimism was pretty close to this green line, and again, as a result of this extended decline down into the intermediate cycle low, with the decline itself lasting for around half a year, never mind the duration of the whole intermediate cycle. During that time, we see silver optimism dropping far below this green line. So while there are examples like this, often intermediate cycle lows in silver are signaled by this optimism dropping somewhere around the level of 40 or so. And what do you know, less than a couple of weeks ago, this optimism index came to around the level of 44. So there is a pretty good chance, again, that we have seen the intermediate cycle low. I would give it perhaps 75% chance that both gold and silver are going to trend upwards for the next 2 to 3 to 4 months. With perhaps a 25% chance that there will be one more dip into the intermediate cycle low, with the optimism coming closer to that usual level of around 40. As for my personal position, as well as that of the members at myfinanceteacher.org, we of course are positioned according to the more likely scenario. Next, let's have a look at seasonality. That's from 2015. That's when that previous bear market in precious metals finished. So over these last 8 to 9 years, seasonality also suggests that silver often bottoms around early October, and with the exception of this late November dip, perhaps into tax loss selling, there is a generally upward momentum into January and February, which I often mentioned in my previous videos as the Chinese New Year effect. So in the short-term, seasonality doesn't disagree with a bit of a bounce for the next several weeks, but it does give us caution, perhaps suggesting the start of this new intermediate cycle, somewhat similar to what we saw in the second half of last year. A bit of a bounce into the first daily cycle and a correction nearly all the way down to the intermediate cycle lows before the advancing phase of this new intermediate cycle continues all the way into probably Chinese New Year. That is the 75% chance scenario, with, as I mentioned, a seasonality suggesting that there might be another lower low sometime in late November, perhaps due to that tax loss selling. And as the inexperienced traders do like to buy when everyone is getting excited, instead of buying at the lows, instead of buying when the blood is on the streets, as I often mention in my videos. As a lot of inexperienced traders would be buying with a lot of excitement over here around March, April this year, all the way through the second half of this year, there would be enough losses accumulated to generate perhaps some of that tax loss selling. Whether that is going to be enough to give us a lower low below this around the $21 level or not remains to be seen. I think, as I mentioned, there is a 75% chance that the dip isn't going to be severe. But believe it or not, you influence which of the scenarios we're actually going to take. If you want silver to trend higher from here, you gotta give this video a thumbs up. If you want silver to drop down again to have another chance to reaccumulate, well, give this video thumbs down. In either case, make sure to share the video with your friends. By the way, besides precious metals, we do have a modestly profitable position with the members at myfinancesteacher.org in the general stock market and energy sector. For more details, join us. That's myfinancesteacher.org. Have a terrific Thursday. Bye-bye.